This episode of Navel Gazing is sponsored by valleygivesback.org. Adding a Valley charity to your estate plan creates a lasting legacy that tells future generations what causes matter to you. Your action will inspire others to follow your lead and make a difference. With a planned gift, you have the power to impact the Valley community forever without affecting your current lifestyle. Learn more at valleygivesback.org, an initiative of the Valley Community Foundation. Plan now, give later, and impact tomorrow at valleygivesback.org.
For hundreds of years we've brought you the news. Printed the info, we gave you the clues. Owners' profits were always sky high. Changing market now threatens our lives. Post-literation, critical reading, dumbed down nation, signs of inbreeding, TV sucking ideas from our head, public discourse just about dead. We'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur.
Hey everybody, welcome to Navel Gazing, the Valley Indy's weekly talk show or podcast or whatever you want to call us. My name is Eugene Driscoll. I'm with valleyindy.org. You can follow us on Twitter at Valley Indy. We're on Facebook, Valley Independent Sentinel, and of course the aforementioned valleyindy.org. We're also on WNHH 103.5 FM, I think 10 p.m. on Mondays. So after happy hour, turn on your radio and listen to us blab. Joining me is Valley Indy reporter Ethan Fry. Hello, Ethan.
Hello, how are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I might have to adjust your levels there. Ethan we're doing this via Google Hangout. So Ethan is going to sound a little different. He's going to be digitized. His voice has been digitized like a robot. And that's because I'm home today with two kids. They were sick overnight. My wife's away on photography business. So I'm Mr. Mom, and I kept my kids home from school. They pretty much faked being sick and got me. So my life's a bit of a hell. A hell compounded by the fact I woke up this morning to a post on the Valley Indy Facebook page shaming me. Shame on you, Valley Indy, or VIS. The article that I wrote, that I'm working on for a week or so off and on, is about this idea, possibly maybe, to have the National Guard stationed in some capacity at Derby High School. It was an issue that first came out, was floated during a school safety forum about a month ago. New Haven Register mentioned it in passing in an article they wrote about the forum, and I thought, well, that's something worth exploring. Can that something that can even be done? What would have to happen? What would the process be like? And what did Superintendent Matthew Conway of Derby Public Schools actually have in mind? I talked to Jim Gilday, the chairman of the Derby Board of Education, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you didn't read the article, it's on valleyindy.org. We have a little search box, or you can Google. There's something called Google Derby National Guard, and maybe it'll pop up. But I wanted to sort of use this comment thread now that I've calmed down a bit after screaming curses into my pillow. It's a teachable moment, right, Ethan? This is a teachable moment about media literacy, the definition of what's bias and what's just reporting, the difference between ideally a news article and an op-ed page, because I think those things all get mixed up, and it causes, like me, a dude living in Derby, just writing about an issue up the road, being shamed, publicly shamed, for reasons that I cannot comprehend.
Yeah, and I mean the article isn't directly about quote unquote gun control. It's more about the National Guard, but like any story that we even touches on, even sort of obliquely, the question of guns. And I guess it's about guns, and in as much as it's about school shootings and what to do in reaction to them. But these articles, more than any other, I could think, maybe
it's a third rail.
Articles about dogs,
pit bulls.
some sort of pets, are the only thing that approach it in terms of people feeling very passionately and
this is a case where I knew going in, I'm like, okay, this is sort of the third rail of journalism. Whenever you write anything that even remotely has to do with guns or the possibility of gun control, or as one time been mentioned, in connection to some type of regulation, people have strong opinions. And it brings me to my first point. Yes, media bias does exist. I think a lot of it in the so-called mainstream media started with sort of the networks and the CNNs and the TV news of the world by employing former government officials. George Stephanopoulos comes to mind, this revolving door that happens, which I think has eroded the public's trust in media. And then we get hit with it on the local level now because it's filtered down, trickled down to sites like valleyindy.org. And that's my kids upstairs. I'll probably have to go check on them at one point because I hear some yelling going on. I was hoping I could get 15 minutes where I could just duck down here. So media bias does exist, but the one thing I want to point out to people that I just had an epiphany on about the other day, we get accused of bias from people, and to put it nicely, who are very hardened in their views on a particular subject. And we're talking big ticket subjects. It could be abortion, the death penalty, those traditional ones. It's become anything that has to do with gun control. Also, people with extreme views on a given subject are very quick to throw out the bias allegation. Should we just read the first comment, Ethan? This is kind of what I woke up to at about 5 a.m. or so, because my kids were my daughter just could not sleep. She was so congested last night. And then my son got up at about 5 a.m. He couldn't sleep, and I ended up calling them into school sick at about 6 a.m., but they seem fully recovered now. So good one, guys. Thanks.
It's the great immune systems of youth at work. Yes, the first is, I'll just read it here. Shame on you, VIS. You mentioned the Florida shooting, gun reform, and failed to mention what happened in Maryland. Armed forces helped to combat this issue. Gun-free zones only shows the target areas.
Okay, to me, that I just had to read that comment over and over again.
Right.
And then my first thought is, I'm a terrible writer. What? And you read it. You're a terrible editor. What did we put in that article? Because like I said, I went in just working on the article and writing it, knowing that you got to be more than fair here. You got to be as dispassionate as possible dealing with a subject like this, because I don't see our function as riling people up. It's good for page views, it's good for Facebook, but it doesn't necessarily help us do our job every day, because we're your neighbors bringing you the news. So I went back and I read the article, and I knew I could
read the paragraph in question, I guess.
Yeah,
the story.
Yeah,
it just said.
I wrote this. I wrote this article with. This particular paragraph with a purpose. The purpose being this. Here we go, people. This is blah blah blah. Here it is. I thought this would be the part of the article that people would be like, okay, they're not just saying gun control. It's mentioning all these other things. So, but anyway, Go ahead. Yeah.
It says, quote, another mass murder at a Florida high school February 14th has caused a national debate, again, over school safety, gun control, and issues related to mental health.
3. So, yeah. And so, okay, my purpose in writing that paragraph was, if you look at the sequence of events, there was February 14th, mass murder at a high school. Shortly thereafter, school districts all over the lower Naugatuck Valley scheduled school safety forums in response to the February 14th shooting. Cause and effect. Direct correlation between those two events. During one of the school safety forums in the city of Derby Public School Superintendent Matthew Conway had a slideshow. He floated an idea. And it began, he was at the gym. Somebody who works out regularly, I guess, next to him, mentioned that. Hey, what about the National Guard? Conway, who's a big ideas guy, he's a creative superintendent, gets grant money from all over the place. He does things, he's a big thinker. He thought, hey, that's an idea, let's pursue it. So, school shooting, safety forum in which the National Guard issue is brought up. New Haven Register writes an article. I wanted to explore just the National Guard part of it. So I never thought to include the police officer in Maryland who shot a guy who was out to kill students. It wasn't the cause and effect. The cause and effect here was the February 14th mass murder in Florida. It's factual, people. Like, I don't understand. It wasn't a running tally of successful school shootings versus unsuccessful school shootings. I think the problem here is either the person read it quickly, or 2, lacks adequate reading comprehension skills, or 3 is bias. Because readers, guess what? Readers have a bias. Your personal opinion is brought to the table when you read an article. And in today's culture and media culture, where our big, the CNNs and the MSNBCs and the Fox News and the Huffington Posts of the world and the Breitbarts, they regurgitate your beliefs back to you. So when we try to do it the old-fashioned way, where this is not me taking a position. This is not a column. It's a news article. I was simply pointing out the fact that these forums happened because of a school shooting, and in a forum, the National Guard was mentioned as security. Now, the article's a little vague because basically, there was this idea. It was thrown out there as an idea. Basically, it was just an idea. An idea is just words. National Guard, I had talked to them, and basically, National Guard is like, we're not going to do security. Malloy said no. Governor Malloy doesn't want armed military guys in school. So maybe that's not, maybe because the article is sort of, no one kind of comes out really and says that, but that's clearly what's going on. So Conway's like, well, okay, maybe they can do some type of security of some type, or maybe they can look at I don't know, they can do recruitment. We don't know what. So they're gonna talk about it. But I was just struck by, I tried to explain to that reader, and one thing about the reader in that comment, they leave out the fact that we mentioned mental health. There's been a whole debate over that. There's been a whole debate about school safety. There already, I just don't understand how we were supposed to list every school shooting, and that somehow leaving out the hero police officer was somehow made me worthy of shame. I mean, I understand and respect law enforcement, but that was the purpose of the article, was not to take a side. And I just wish sometimes people would realize it's not a column. Turn off the Bill O'Reillys and the Keith Olbermanns of the world for a second. You gotta drop your own political baggage and partisan view of things when you read some articles. I don't know. Maybe I'm whining and I'm just angry.
It's a Pandora's box because they're like, oh, you didn't mention this. The instance where you said, that the hero cop stopped the guy in Maryland. I mean, by that logic, we were obligated to mention that there were armed deputies at the Florida high school that didn't stop the shooter there. Should we have mentioned the recent case in California where an armed teacher accidentally fired a gun in class? By that logic, should we mention that there aren't these school mass shootings anywhere else in the world that happens at such a regular occurrence as they do in the United States? And why that is, most people would point to stricter gun control laws. So, I mean, there's this reductio ad absurdum where, every article would be infinitely long.
Yes.
Going through all this stuff.
Every article, this article would be a World Book Encyclopedia collection from 1982 by that guy's logic. Hi, this is Eugene Driscoll, most likely interrupting myself to bring you a message from our sponsor, valleygivesback.org. Adding a Valley charity to your estate plan creates a lasting legacy that tells future generations what causes mattered to you. Your action will inspire others to follow your lead and make a difference. With a planned gift, you have the power to impact the Valley community forever without affecting your current lifestyle. Learn more at valleygivesback.org, an initiative of the Valley Community Foundation. Plan now, give later, impact tomorrow at valleygivesback.org. Now, I mean, Facebook I'm sort of almost done with because they took away comment mirroring. We can't,
Yes.
it's killed our comments section, so it's all on, it benefits Facebook and not valleyindy.org. Not that
Facebook has not had a great week nationally,
right.
or,
and you see
or
like
in our minds.
And you see like here's the problem. Here's what people have lost the art of debate to some extent because of online commenting, which I hate to say, but like here's the thing. If instead of shaming me, you don't know me, you don't know my background, you don't know if I have an arsenal of maybe I'm a gun guy. You don't know anything about me.
Yeah.
To make these presumptions and to shame me, go jump in a river. I lost my train of thought. I got so angry I lost my train of my train of thought there. We've lost the ability when you don't agree with somebody, we make assumptions and accuse and we attack, right? We shame, personally attack. That's what we do. I'm guilty of it as well.
Same here.
But the way to do it is, okay, you said that. Are you saying that? There's a way to like, wait, maybe your assumption isn't wrong. Maybe the writer screwed up. Maybe in that the way that guy was interpreting that, I didn't mean it, but it was my screw up as the writer. That I could see how that could be interpreted like that because I wasn't clear in my writing. That happens all the time. Read the next comment because I try to explain. Here's why I included that graph, but this is the problem with political debate. Reader doesn't acknowledge it. The person doesn't acknowledge it. Just goes on to some other thing that they pull out of their nose.
Yeah, it says, why ignore a solution that just proved its own point? We choose what fits the storyline. As you can see, the Austin bomber got more coverage than the failed school shooting. Why? Malloy says unarmed National Guard and school to add an extra pair of eyes. That just makes them additional targets for shooters.
And I mean, I didn't even, the only thing I can say is that that's not what Malloy said. You got to read the article. It seems like, again, this person doesn't seem to know the difference between a news article and an op-ed. And I think that's because we all consume media that just regurgitates our political views back to us. This wasn't an op-ed. This isn't saying, hey, here's how Eugene Driscoll feels about the National Guard. I mean, I did find it interesting. I chose to pursue it because I thought it was a really interesting subject, one that would have never even been considered 20 years ago. So there's bias there. I thought it was newsworthy. If anything, you could probably argue I'm more on the reader. Go ahead. What's the next comment?
You had said, instead of saying, are you saying, or are you suggesting that, people just make assumptions and say, shame on you. The reply to that was, is it not your article? Why not mention the most recent school shooting? Oh, I get it. Not enough gun deaths for you. And that's the definition of, I don't even know. That's just an ignorant personal attack. And I don't know how we change this. Maybe like arguing about it in this way isn't the way to do it. But I just thought this one comment thread it reveals so much. It's like, it's just the problem with our debate in 2018 and the role that Facebook and social media and online news organizations like us all play in it. We're all like just perfectly encapsulated, in this one insane thread. So at the end of the day, that's a person who doesn't understand the purpose of a news story, who thinks that it was a column or a letter to the editor, and that at the end of the day, me, home with my 2 sick kids, wants them dead, I guess. Like, I'm pro school shooting, which is just asinine. Yeah, and that's something that's sort of exasperating. Well, I think he was trying to say that I didn't mention the hero cop stopping a school shooter because not enough people died. I don't know. This is clearly a person who's bringing their own view and just projecting it on me and making me the enemy. It's like, dude, I don't even know you. Why are you making these assumptions about me? He said that you are looking for a viable solution to school safety and you choose to ignore the most recent example. Emma, I'm almost done, okay? I'll go see you in 5 minutes. My daughter's trying to get she wants a red popsicle. I don't have the heart to tell her we're out of red popsicles. So that'll be, maybe I'll, but hey, you know me, I'm a liberal, hippie, gun-hating communist. I enjoy the tears of children and want to see them die, according to
a reader. Yeah, and that last part where you're looking, it's just so. No, I'm not looking, dude. I just wrote an article based on something that was said in public, and I explored it a little further. And we even have, one great thing about podcasts is that when we talk to Matthew Conway, the superintendent of Derby Public Schools, you can go listen to what he said himself. It's not edited. It's up there in a previous podcast. So there's I don't think it's a story structure problem in here. And I tried to point out the graph in question, why it appeared, and the cause and effect that I thought demonstrably shows why that paragraph's in there. It's not an editorial. And here's the other thing. Look, it started a debate over gun control, mental health, school safety. I'm sorry if you don't like that, but it happened. Deal with it. It happened. We didn't take a side either way in that story. I spent couple of hours putting that article together and then talking to the National Guard and then rewriting it, and somebody reads it, I don't know, maybe they're on the toilet for 5 seconds on their iPhone and they read it, give it a cursory review and just react to it. I think that happens as well. People aren't actually, we think it's just conceited. It's our elitism, I think. That's sort of built into the industry where people they're not paying that close attention, and I tried to make that article so short and short sentences and all that kind of stuff, but didn't work. You're going to write anything about these hot topic issues. We now live in a society where the outrage police, don't care what your political affiliation is, you got to do that Cersei from Game of Thrones, shame, shame, shame walk. It's just It's just now part of the daily job at a nonprofit online newspaper that barely anybody reads.
You mentioned that thing at the beginning about there's so much the revolving door with cable news and everything, and
that's killed us.
Yeah, I would say there are too many pundits. There's too much punditry going on.
Gosh,
we're the diametrical opposite of that. We go out of our way not to editorialize.
Except in our podcast, maybe we're just as bloviate. And this will make I know this. People hate this. I'll see our numbers when we do something like this, where it's just me and you talking about ourselves. 28 views. We could probably name the people that actually listened. It's embarrassing, but I felt it was important. I just it's not all media bias. Maybe you have a bias too. I don't know. Why don't we quickly go through the most read stories of the week, and then we'll call it a day.
All right. Yeah. Most read stories in the past week. Number 5, police car crashes in Derby.
I forgot to ask. I put one follow-up and didn't hear back, and I should have asked again. I forgot. Sorry.
Under investigation, right? Or last we checked.
Right, yeah, of course.
Okay. Number 4, baby born in Ansonia ambulance. That was just taken from the Facebook page of the Ansonia Rescue and Medical Services.
And then just real quick, it's nice to see EMS personnel sort of generating their own news, because HIPAA, which came about since I've been a reporter, really curtailed anything EMS people say. They're sort of a wall of silence by statute. So it's cool to see arms there navigating social media waters, because they see a lot of positive stuff that we don't hear about.
Within the bounds of obviously they didn't name the person or say what their address was, but it's just sort of
right. Which with us is kind of we can't really but I've lowered that bar and been yeah, we're going to share this information. The community needs it because we're not all negative. Despite what you say.
Speaking of not negative, number 3, Derby schedules groundbreaking ceremony for athletic field projects.
Oh God. And all the videos are up. It'll be published by the time this podcast comes out. I got so behind editing those things. I should have just done it as a live stream. Sorry, I got overwhelmed and I meant to turn around in a day and I did not.
Number 2, Ansonia property owner disputes city's cleanup account. That was a follow-up to a previous story. And number 1, this was a story that just came out yesterday. Ansonia detective questions promotion process.
I guess we're at the 37-minute mark, so we don't have to do This Week in History. Unless there was something like, is there one really good one?
There's just one. I mean, it's March 20th, 1958. This the first day of spring brings a snowstorm. Much of the snow initially melts on contact, but starts to stick as the night goes on. Some of the valley sees 4 inches. So that just illustrated the
oh, wow.
Plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose, as they say.
Now, this is where my bias against you, like, I don't know what that, what do you say?
The same.
Oh, God.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
I still don't eat French fries. You know what was the funny thing about this storm? I set up, I have an extra iPhone, an old one, with this free time
lapse.
Thank you. Time lapse app. And I set it up in my bathroom, and I like put it was like there was no barrier between my house and the outside world, because I just like wedged it in the window, and I had an extension cord going to it. And I had it, and it was like, you watch our video and it's like just green grass, a couple of flurries, then like 17 minutes of darkness, and then the sun comes up, and it was just terrible. I was so annoyed. It was like, ugh. So anyway, next time. All right, Ethan. We'll probably never post this. I don't know. I'll have to go back and review it. I do get a little, I don't know. It's not really our place to complain this much, but I guess at the end of the day, we do take what we do seriously. I know, my extended family doesn't respect what I do, and they think I'm, sort of a bum or some type of slacker for doing this for a living. And then half the people I meet, and I'm sure it happens to you, think we're like married, right? Yeah, they think
I'm a newspaper reporter. What newspaper? It's not really a newspaper.
Or they say like, oh, what's your day job? Like, what do you do what did you marry rich? Or what you do this? Is it like they just think this is something we do on the side? But no, it's actually how we sort of pay the bills, or at least keep the credit card company off the back a little bit. And right now, I'm gonna use the money from valleyindy.org, I guess, to feed my children. So, Ethan, thanks for letting me blab on and vent. And thank you for reading Valley Indy. We'll see you next time.
For hundreds of years, we've brought you the news. Printed the info, we gave you the clues. Profits were always sky high. Changing market now threatens our lives. Post-literation, critical reading, dumbed down nation, signs of inbreeding. TV sucking ideas from our head. Public discourse just about dead. We'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur. Our readers are in the opens each day. Online clickbait, a prurient way. It's free information here to stay. Not even hookers give it away. Advertising, metastasizing, newsroom shrinking. Constant attrition. We'll ride the dinosaur. We'll ride the dinosaur. Dinosaur. Deadlines, bylines, pictures too. An editorial comment for a buck or two. Fire down the block, the murder next door. And now we wonder what it's all for. Social media coming free to you, funny pages, the mayor's wages, criminal scenes, corruption schemes, ink stain wretches, idiots asking tough questions. We'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur. The presses are running all through the night. We're printing the truth with all of our might. We're platform agnostics, got that interweb too. Buy an ad, see what we can do. We still have subscribers, still have our fans. We're here every day, so give us a chance and we'll make an art stand. Just hold us in your hand and we'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur.